Very good morning to you, Alex. Right, what are you expecting from the President? What would you like to see happen tonight?
Well, I think that there's always this language of lockdowns, and I think we've moved past that. We will be looking at restrictions, and I think quite local restrictions. And I think these potentially are necessary because a degree of complacency has developed in certain regions, and I think is becoming more general. And I think that the summer period is the time when we're most likely to be able to contain the epidemic in comparison to winter and what might happen in April, May. So I think that we should see very, very localized restrictions targeting any form of mass gathering that's indoors and where people are not wearing masks for long periods of time. And that will be in pubs, bars, shebeens, and hopefully as well taxis too. So those, I think, would be the kinds of interventions, looking at de-densifying some of these mass gatherings. They don't have a huge economic impact. They might have a very sort of local economic impact, but they won't have the kind of impact that we had with the level 5 lockdown.
Yes, I think we're at that point, aren't we, where government and us have realized that we cannot possibly go back to that dark phase that we were in. But talking of dark phases, I mean, we are expecting a second wave if it hasn't hit us already. The problem is, how do you impose any sort of restrictions in these places which are super spreaders?
Yeah, so I think that we might not be seeing what's often referred to as a second wave. I think there's a very strong seasonal. It appears from many countries that there's a strong seasonal element to the epidemic, but that's largely related to human behavior. So as the weather cools, people are indoors more, and that tends to increase the transmissibility of the virus and create the opportunity for more super-spreading events. So summer is the period in which that possibility is reduced. But what we are seeing is people still doing that even in summer. So I think that the generalized economic lockdown clearly didn't work in the first phase. And not the heavy lockdown, and many aspects of it didn't work, although it might have had some effect. But its damage was too great. So we've basically run out of runway for generalized lockdowns and really can't consider it. So localized interventions are going to be very important during the summer period. I think we're to survive a second wave going into winter, we are going to need vaccines. And there's going to be an enormous push to get vaccines, but there's a question being raised, I think, certainly in many quarters and people that I'm discussing with, whether or not government is actually doing its job adequately to make sure that we have a rollout of vaccines before April. If we do not have a rollout of vaccines before April, we will face a major second wave, which we will not contain. And
Alex, where's government falling short here? Why are they not putting all procedures in place in order to get that in time? What's going wrong?
Well, it's unclear what is actually happening. So there's not much reporting going on, and certainly a lot of people in the know are themselves unaware of what is going on, and are getting very concerned that a lot of the groundwork to make sure that we can roll out in time has not been done. And as I said, there's this, in Europe, they're going through their winter period now, which is why they're making the vaccine rollout urgent, because they thought they could contain the epidemic in the winter period and they couldn't. And that's an indication of what's going to happen to us. But we've got this time period up until April to get our ducks in a row. And we really have to make sure that we are making sure that we are in a position to roll out as early as we can. We should have distributed enough vaccine by April to have contained serious aspects of the epidemic, at least to the people most likely to die, as well as frontline workers, and maybe a bit more than that by April. But we have to get off the starting blocks, and it's totally unclear where we are.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, what's key to getting that rollout happening and to expediting the process? And if we don't get that as soon as we should, what impact is this going to have on hospitals? You hear that already many are buckling.
Yeah, so I would distinguish between the current period and the resurgence we're seeing now and what we will face as a sort of more systemic surge in April, May. What will happen to us if we have an uncontainable generalized outbreak again. So it will be severe. So the question as to what we have to do, we have to be making sure that we are approving or licensing a vaccine in the South African context. We require that. So SAHPRA has to get its ducks in a row. We are going to see rapid approvals internationally, and then we have to be making sure that we've got commitments to certain numbers of doses of the virus, that we've actually got access, of the vaccine, that we've got a reasonable amount that we're able to purchase and have delivered to us on time. So that might be happening, but we need to have got these commitments that we know we're going to have enough vaccine to begin a rollout as soon as possible. If you see now in the United Kingdom, they've begun a rollout. It will be as soon as Monday. And that's because they're in a critical position, and they urgently got their approvals through, at least in respect of one vaccine. We basically need that for the vaccines that we are going to have have access to. So this does become an absolute critical part of the next stage of managing this particular pandemic. It's the vaccine is basically our major intervention that has to work.
All right, Alex, good to talk to you, and it'll be good to get to the bottom of why government is being so quiet about its plans to get this vaccine and what the rollout process is likely to be.
Thank you.